So, Africa, welcome to IG World Network, where we go around the globe, where we bring you stories by people for people. Today is the 19th of August 2023. We are broadcasting from South Africa. This time around, we are covering stories they are stories that are following up on the stories and interviews that we've done before. So I'm not going to waste too much of your time, Africa. I'm just going to bring you with our first guest this afternoon to say something that has been coming out from the banks, something that has been coming out from the judiciary, something that has been coming out from the police in this country. So we are not going to divulge much. I have to introduce my guest to you. Shamilla Patha, welcome to IG World Network.
Thank you, Mandla.
I don't want us to waste too much of the time. If you can just give our viewers in terms of who is Shamilla Patha.
Shamilla Patha is an activist and a person that's been around for over 50 years. Don't want to give my age away. But I'm just an ordinary citizen that's been affected by what has been going on in regards to our homes being taken away from us and just the major corruption that's happening in banks, or should I say financial institutions, in the judiciary. People on the street are being attacked daily and no one's helping.
Just to give you a background, viewers, in July last year, 2022, we covered a story that broke out of South Africa again, that there was courts were implicated in terms of issuing orders that were not legitimate, which then they were taken to sheriffs, and people's houses, cars, properties were being repossessed. And that story, it has taken so much traction. Over 100 people have come forward also sharing their stories around what has been happening with their properties as well. Shamilla is one of them. So I believe we have a similar story regarding the lawyers, the courts, the judiciary, and obviously the sheriffs that come knocking on your door now and again.
Yes, Mandla, our story is one of the many hundreds and hundreds of stories that people are experiencing out there. And fortunately, being a fighter, being an activist, I just didn't want to take it lying down like everybody else. When you receive summons, it's one of the most painful things you could experience, because it means you're going to have to find a lawyer, you're going to have to go to court, you're going to have to spend money that you don't have. And it became impossible for some people that we know of, family members, friends, neighbors, that threw in the towel and said, no, we can't handle this, let them take the house. But I, being an activist, I am a fighter. I decided I'm not going to allow this to happen anymore. And thankfully, I joined Hornets Forensic Investigations, who are helping people. They are an organization, or should I say, a team of people that got together. I think you interviewed Johan Root some stage, and he's a fighter just like me. I think he's a bigger fighter than me. And we decided that people need to learn that they don't need to throw in the towel. They don't need money to fight this. They just need the truth. They need the facts and the truth, and that should be good enough for any court. So we are here to expose the truth. And if we don't speak out today, South Africans are just going to continue suffering. The financial institutions are going to take advantage of the fact that people do not know their rights. And I think Hornets Forensic Investigations are doing a good job in educating us and telling us that these are our rights. We have the ability to stand up and speak up. And now it's up to everybody that gets to this point and can say, right, we've had enough and we are going to fight this.
Before we get into the details of your case, this thing is consistent now that you've been covering out, that the courts are implicated. The courts are being used. I don't want to say the courts are corrupt. I just want to say the courts are being used by clever firms and clever corporates to cover their dirty work. Is that the right illustration?
Yes, it's absolutely right. You don't want to say the courts are corrupt. I'm going to say it. It's just too corrupt, Mandla. It is. I've seen it. And there was even a day when I was sitting in court and my brother was in court. And the judge made no, he's not a judge, he's a magistrate. He made an order that was totally wrong. And I was sitting in the auditorium, or where
Gallery.
the gallery, right? And he was inside with the magistrate and the attorneys and advocates and things like that. And I could see that he was just being railroaded by this judge that kept saying he's going to pass the order for costs, because the bank was not ready to go ahead with the matter, and he was ready. So at the end of it, they decided to postpone indefinitely, but that the costs would be run at the end, decided at the end. And I thought, but that's not fair. He's ready. The bank is not ready. Whose fault is it? The cost should actually just be ordered for the bank's people. So I just didn't understand that, and I eventually ran into this little courtyard that they have and gave my brother a note, and I was shouted at by the judge to say, what are you doing in my court? And I thought, well, I just wanted to give him a note. But this is how it is. It's either judges are not educated enough to do the right thing, or they deliberately do the wrong thing. True.
That's why we say we don't want to say it from our channel that the courts are corrupt. Hence, we are saying that maybe they are being used by the clever lawyers and the clever financial institutions. But let's get into your case now. Your case started when?
It started in 2017, when I found out that my bond was changed from a 20-year bond to a 30-year bond without my knowledge. So in 2017, my husband got retrenched, and we decided to take his retrenchment package and go and pay off the house. We purchased the house in 2003. So in 2017, we had paid for about 15 years. And we had also made large payments towards the bond because we had sold a second property and took the funds and put it into this bank. And so we were shocked. The bank, the initial loan was 419,000. And in 2017, when we asked for a final payment amount, and we were told it was 394,000. So I thought, something's wrong. Maybe it's 39,000. Somebody made a mistake somewhere, because it can't be that in 15 years we've only paid off 20 some odd thousand on this 419,000. And so we went to the manager's office and started chatting, and they phoned the home loans department, and they said, no, it is 394,000 because it's a 30-year loan. And that's where it started.
Now, which institution is this one?
Standard Bank.
Standard Bank, you hear it, you have the right to reply, of course, in terms of these allegations that have been brought before you. But when you then summoned or volunteered to go to the bank to make an inquiry?
Well, the inquiry started then.
I'm saying it started then, but were you aware that the second term has been added into your loan agreement?
We were only informed in 2017 that it had taken place in 2009.
How did it take place, if you are aware?
There was a lot of emails going backward and forward trying to get an explanation as to how this happened. And the head of resolutions wrote to me and said that I was in areas in April 2009 for about 8,800 Rand. And the bank did me a favor by not taking me to court or informing me that I was in areas, or letting me know that I had an opportunity to bring it up if I wanted to. They just decided on their own that they will add another 10 years, and I would be okay with that.
Hold on. You are in areas for a couple of months. For being in areas, then the bank makes a decision that you must then add, what, 10 more
10.
years on your bond?
10 more years, which is about, I think.
Do they notify you for you to sign an acknowledgement or an agreement in terms
Absolutely
of?
nothing, Mandla. They agreed that they had no proof. They kept saying that they had proof. They were going to send me the proof. It took months. They had no proof. Then they came back with the response that they did me a favor. And by the way, I was never in arrears. I have proof that my bond was actually 1 month ahead in April 2009. I have proof that I had enough and sufficient funds to pay the full installment instead of the installment they decided. Remember, the banks do a debit order. They decide every month how much is going out of your account. So when you have an interest change, an increase or decrease in interest, they automatically change your debit order. They don't have to keep coming back to you and telling you that they need a new debit order. It's an automatic thing. So when they changed the debit order, I was not even informed of that. So when the investigation started in 2017 and I started going back into my bank where the debit order went out and found that no, I had enough money for a full installment to go out. And then I went back to the bank's records to find out which month they're talking about and why was I in arrears. I found that on the 1st, the installment was deducted and it was returned on the 1st because there was not enough funds. So when that happens, I get a message on my phone that the installment was returned. Immediately at midnight, I think, I did an EFT. But at the same time, before the month ended, around the 28th, my bond installment went out again. So I had double payments for that month, for that period. For April 2009, I had paid my bond twice. So there was no arrears. Besides that, the bank usually calls you to say that you are in arrears, or they write a letter and say that you've missed a bond payment, and you need to rectify it. But I rectified it within 24 hours.
Okay. They give you all that information. We have not acknowledged the 8-10 year extension that they are bringing to your bond. Then you go backwards and forth with them in terms of getting explanation. You do not succeed.
No, I don't.
And then what then the next step?
So the next step is that we wrote more letters. We also found out that we did a forensic audit on our bond and found out that they had changed our interest rates a few times, which was irregular. And they owed us approximately 20,000 Rand. That was an irregular payments that they had taken out. And there's a charge of, I think it's an admin cost of 5.70 Rand, which remains 5.70 Rand throughout the life of the bond. They can't increase it. So they've been increasing this 5.70 Rand every couple of months or years or whatever. It's now around 67 Rand some change, which is an admin cost. And I brought that to their attention. They ignored me. They kept ignoring every phone call that I made. They kept ignoring every letter that I wrote. So eventually, when I found out that I had paid over 990,000, I think 990. I might be a little off on that figure. For a 419,000 Rand bond, I said, I think my bond's paid up. And I wrote a letter to the bank and I said, my bond has been paid up in August 2017. I will no longer be paying my bond. I would like you to return my title deed and the excess money that I've paid on my bond. So I did this through a calculation with the forensic auditor who said, if you took the bond over a 20-year period and we took an average of the interest rates over that period, I should have only have paid around 689,000 Rands. So we agreed, okay, the bank is there to make money. We would require 94,000. We don't want the whole 300,000 Rand back. 94,000 seemed to be fair. And we wrote this in the letter and sent it. That was January 2020. And in November 2020, I got a summons. That's when the summons appeared, telling me that I am now in areas of 25,000 Rands and that they were looking for a judgment to sell my property.
Now, the summons are being issued now for non-compliance, if I may put it that way.
Yes.
Or non-payment.
Non-payment.
But you've notified the bank that we are not going to be continuing paying. Yes. Because
it's paid off.
you've paid the property in full. So it's for the bank now to prove that you have not paid the property in full. Did they do that?
No, they didn't. The thing, Manda, the reason why I did that in 2020 was because we were not getting any response from the bank to take any responsibility for the changing of the 20-year to 30-year. They didn't want to go back to the 20-year installment, or rather, they didn't want to go back. They were prepared to go back as long as I was going to pay the interest that they would have received in 20 years, in 30 years, sorry. So how are we doing anyone a favor besides the bank getting richer and self-enrichment ideas that they have?
We tried to investigate with Standard Bank in particular to find out how does this bond extension happen. They said that to us it can happen even via a telephonic call if they reach out to you and they notify you that you are in areas, and then you then said, can they put it back into your bond, and then you will say yes. But where we couldn't understand then, isn't it that an agreement as big as that an extension on your bond will be added, then they need to have you sign something to say maybe you must go to the branch and sign something,
Yes.
or share the recording where you were agreeing for the bond extension.
I've asked for all of that, the signatures, the letters, any of those things that would verify that I did agree to it, and they didn't come up. It's been from 2017 till now, I haven't received anything. The fact is, the contract that was signed in 2003 states very clearly, any changes to this bond will only take effect if it is signed by both parties. Any changes.
Any change that happens in your agreement,
Yes.
both parties must sign
Yes.
it. So in this regard, you did not sign with the bank.
Yeah, and they agreed to that. They accept that they didn't sign it. They didn't get me to sign it.
But they have any other way that they've said you have agreed?
Nothing.
They don't have anything that
Nothing,
they're saying that you have agreed. Now tell me, you received the summons, the first summon, and then it summons you to do what?
To defend, they applied to have the house sold for the 25,000 that was outstanding.
Okay.
They send a section 20, notice 29, I think, which we never received. And in the pack, the summons pack, it shows that it was never, I never received it. It was sent via post. And it says that it's just lying in a post office somewhere. So the next step after notice 29 is to go ahead and issue summons, which is what they did. Then they have their rights to do it, as long as they have a valid reason to do it, and they didn't. So besides us having a matter sitting in the resolution department, still being resolved, they jumped ahead and went straight to court to sell the house without resolving my inquiries. So that's how unfair banks are being today. They're not waiting for you to help yourself. They're helping themselves.
So in the division where they're supposed to resolve your dispute, it lies there. On the other hand, the court process is continuing. Now, your summons, your final summon, your last summon, did it take you to court? Did you say you are going to defend it?
I did say I was going to defend it, and we waited for responses from the bank. We put in our plea, we put our counterclaims in, and then the bank went silent for a year. And I started asking questions. When are we going to court? When are we going to court? And we never got an answer. They kept coming back to me saying, the bank is doing a recalculation on your bond. And emails went backward and forward with their attorneys. And we found that there was no calculations on any bond. The final excuse that I got, I think it was December 2021, was that the person that was supposed to do the calculations and make the final decision on my bond, was on maternity leave. And I had to wait until she came back or he came back. So I decided, no, I'm not going to wait any longer. I went ahead and prepared documents on my own to do a pre-trial. I've been doing a little bit of my own research, And I sent them an agenda, which then brought the whole matter forward again. And that's how we got into court. And finally, we are at a stage where we're supposed to have the trial on the 5th, 6th, and 7th of September. And I just got a letter last week stating that the bank's lawyers have now been dropped or removed, or I don't know what's the legal term, but they've been replaced by new attorneys. And the new attorneys claim that they received the paperwork a week ago. This was last week. And they're not ready. There's documents that's missing in the paperwork that they received from the bank's previous attorney. And they don't know whether it went in front of a judge for the pre-trial minutes. And so they're not ready, and they'd like to postpone.
Now, who are the previous attorneys that have withdrawn?
Strauss Daly.
Strauss Daly again.
Again.
I'm saying Strauss Daly again because we have a couple of matters that have come forward, and Strauss Daly represents a number of banks in terms of in terms of those issues. But what is consistent now is this: the banks, if they find themselves in the corner with the client, you are a difficult client, if I may put it that way. That's our research, that you are a difficult client. If they find themselves as a difficult client, they then remove the firm that is representing the bank and then move on. But it's just a delaying tactic that they use until you run out of funds and resources and ideas and patience, and then you fall into the same trap that they were initially directing you towards. So why now, is there another date that has been put for your case?
Well, no, I'm refusing to allow it to be postponed. We've been ready from 2021. And Strauss Daly told us that they said to the magistrate at the pre-trial that they were ready. That's how the date was approved by both parties. So to come back and tell us that Strauss Daly didn't give the new attorneys this document and this document and this document, I'm sorry. All of those documents are available in the High Court, in the magistrate's court, in the court's files. So all you need to do is go to the court, make copies of the files, and take it back to your office. These are attorneys that are dealing with the similar cases daily. There's nothing new in my case. Well, how much more ready are you going to be?
Now, we are saying we are ready to go to court. Are you ready to go to court?
I'm ready, Manda.
Do we have a legal team representing you?
I got the Hornets, forensic investigators that have done a lot of work in helping us to get to the point where we are now ready with their investigations. But we also have family, friends that are attorneys that's been giving us a lot of advice. I like doing things on my own, but we do have a good team that's helping us,
No, thank you very much, Shamilla, for sharing your story with our viewers. One thing that we know that our viewers are learning out of this process, that you can defend yourself in this matter, in these matters when they are brought to your attention. But the advice that you can give to other victims that are out there, what advice you can say? Please make sure that you do not fall in this maybe same pit that I eventually got into, and then so that you are able to fight this battle at the early stage.
I think people need to be aware that banks are not as honest as we think they are. And they need to keep that in the back of their minds when dealing with their bonds especially, and car loans and things like that. And when you reach a point of about 10 years in your bond, go back and start doing calculations on your own and find out if you are being overcharged, because this is, we found this in every single case that we've been, we've looked at. So my advice is, don't take anything lying down. You have rights. People can't just come and tell you that you don't have a right, or you've broken the law and therefore you have to lose your property, the property that you've built on your own, and you've sacrificed a lot for, to get to the point of leaving something behind for your kids, a legacy or something like that. And there's help out there. There is a lot of people that are willing to help and that are doing it for free. So I don't want to see anyone lose their homes.
You hear it, Africa. You hear it, viewers in South Africa and the African continent. Calculate every penny that you've paid into this financial institution when it comes to your bonds or any loan that you've taken against them, because they cannot be as honest as we assume them to be. But for now, we're going to close the show here in South Africa and hope that you will enjoy our next segment when we then share other stories with you that are coming out or breaking out in South Africa. Until next time, Africa, adios for now.